Okay, it is 11:59. Today is Friday. Each week we say, boy, it is such a blessing to get to the end of the week. And this week, there is no exception to that. Every week seems to outdo the week prior, but throughout all of the weeks, God has been good to us, and we have been able to make it to the end of each week. This week, we've looked at biblical concepts, biblical passages that deals with how confusion is created, how we handle confusion, where confusion originates, the complications of confusion. But today, I'd like for us to end this lesson series by talking about some of the things that basically does not change. Uh, Whether we're looking at the first century or whether we are looking at the
My picture is going to show up there.
always keep in mind that people who create confusion typically are individuals who
I don't know what you
just
did.
don't listen very well. Look at the text on your screen, Matthew chapter 7, verses 22 through 27. And you'll begin to see where I'm coming from with this. Uh, Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? And in your name have we cast out devils? And in your name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Therefore, whosoever hears these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that hears these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and it beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Basically, two groups of people: those who hear and adhere to what the Lord has to say, and those who hear and decide not to pay attention to what the Lord has said. Uh, but the people who don't pay attention typically will get in trouble. Now, look at the text again, and you will see the thing. Therefore, whosoever hears these sayings of mine, you see, people have to listen. And everyone that hears these sayings of mine and doeth them not, it's not that they don't hear. The confusion comes from people who hears and they decide, but this is the way I'm going to do it. And it doesn't matter what the topic might be. In Mark 15, verses 11 through 15, just sort of as an expansion of what Jesus is teaching in Matthew chapter 7. But at this point, the leading priest stirred up the crowd and demanded the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. Now this is at the point to where a decision could have been made to let Jesus go free. But look at who stirs up the crowd: the leading priest. So Pilate asked them, then what should I do with this man you call the King of the Jews? And they shouted back, just kill him. Just kill him. Pilate says, well, why? What crime has he committed? But the mob roared even louder. Crucify him. What was the question raised by Pilate? Why? What crime has he committed? The mob roared louder. Just kill him. That's not answering the question. That creates confusion. On one hand, Pilate is asking a question. On the other hand, the crowd is inciting a riot. Pilate is saying, okay, let's move to your position of crucifying him, but we cannot crucify a man without a charge. So what is the charge? In essence, when they cry louder just to crucify him, they are basically saying, we don't have a charge. But look at all of the chaos they have created. Simply because they do not like Jesus. So to pacify the crowd, you know what Pilate does? He released Barabbas to them. And he ordered Jesus to be flogged with a lead-tipped whip, and then turned him over to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. But his question was never answered. Why? They just said, kill him. And to quieten the crowd without a charge, a legitimate charge, Pilate says, okay. I've got one more slide for today's devotional. Confusion only responds to authority. And therefore, what you'll see Jesus always doing is, in a very godly manner, taking charge. The text of Matthew 7, verse 28 and 29, somebody is asking to get in. I'm going to see if I can let them in. I think I can. Whoops. Nope, that didn't work. Somebody, okay, there we go. I can let them in. There was someone asking to get in. Hopefully they got PG Church of Christ. Okay. Matthew chapter 7, verses 28 and 29. And it came to pass, when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine. Why? Because he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. He didn't meet them in a confrontational manner, but he taught them with confidence and an assurance about him. That's the only thing confusion responds to. You cannot negotiate with confusion, nor can you take a passive position with confusion, because it emboldens those who are creating the confusion. That's why John the Baptist ended up beheaded. He understood Herod is creating confusion. And yet he remained consistent, John the Baptist, in his rebuking of Herod for his ungodly behavior or ungodly relationships. Isaiah teaches basically the same thing in the Old Testament. I put that on the screen as well. In Isaiah 5, verses 20 through 23. What sorrow for those who say that evil is good and good is evil, that dark is light and light is dark, that bitter is sweet and sweet is bitter. What sorrow for those who are wise in their own eyes and think themselves so clever. What sorrow for those who are heroes at drinking wine and boast about all the alcohol they can hold. They take bribes to let the wicked go free, and they punish the innocent. Doesn't that sound somewhat prophetic? In the days of Isaiah, he says, I'm going to predict what the future is going to hold. So when you see how Jesus is handled, Isaiah would say, I told you so. I'm not surprised that the chief priests who know better are creating confusion by calling Jesus evil and calling evil good. He says, I predict that. And yet, people will still, 2,000 years later, continue to allow the prophecy of Isaiah to come to pass. But look at the beginning of verse number 20. What sorrow for those who say. What sorrow. God is never going to overlook people who do this. He didn't overlook the Jews. He didn't overlook those who crucified Jesus, nor will he overlook in the 21st century. Christians, God's people who still practice this ungodly behavior. I talked throughout the week about the evangelism. God will not overlook that, because if godly people are supposed to be the ones who stand up for what God stands for, and yet God's people are the ones who are contradicting what God stands for, then what sorrow for those who say that evil is good and good is evil, that dark is light and that light is dark. Bitter is sweet and sweet is bitter. What sorrow for those who think they're so clever that they can just outmaneuver, that they can find sort of a way to get away, manipulate words. And we're seeing a lot of that even during this transition hour in this country. And yet the prophet Isaiah has already predicted, forecasted the outcome of that. Confusion only responds to authority. Now, your authority and my authority may not be enough, but all power rests in the hands of God. And one day, people are going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ and must give an accounting for the deeds done in this body. And I think Isaiah is looking not just behavior in this life that people perform, but also how we must all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. So what sorrow for those who say, what sorrow in the judgment day. Because sometimes, have you ever seen people just act ungodly, behave ungodly, and then it seems as if they still prosper? It seems as if they get away with literal murder. And we say, well, God's not going to punish them. The prophet Isaiah gives us solace in saying, oh, yes, he will. Because sorrow and punishment awaits, if not in this life, in the journey to come. And because of that, with what we're experiencing now, let's rebuke it with all of the authority given by God for us. But if people overrun the godly rebuke that we give when we stand for what God stands for, they will never push past God. They will never overrun God. If they overrun 20,000 troops, they won't overrun the angelic force of God. It's just not going to happen. And because of that, we should all rest in hope. Let me stop. For those of you who are on Zoom that would like to provide any parting words for the week, you're more than welcome to. Okay. If not, let's have a closing prayer. And I just pray that everyone remains safe this weekend. Father, we thank you so much for watching over us this week. You've protected us, and you've shown us even more, Father, of what confusion can really lead to. And I pray for this country, especially with the events of the inauguration coming up next week. And Father, for all of those guardsmen that are dispatched to the Washington area, and all of those guardsmen and guard women who are dispatched to the states throughout this country, I just pray that you will keep each of them safe. Grant their families an assurance to know that you're with them and that you will protect them, even with just the complexity of what is unfolding. Father, you are not the author of confusion. And I just pray that in your perfect time, you will reveal the darkness of all that is happening, even in our lifetime. Bless us as we serve you. Bless us, Father, as we bow in prayer to you. Through Jesus, I pray. Amen. Okay, Brother Stewart, it's good to see you. I see Sister Pam. Everybody, be safe. Look forward to seeing some of you on Sunday. The others will join you online.
All right, thank you.
Dr. McClure, will you be observing the Monday holiday?
Yes, I will. Monday holiday is King's birthday.
Right.
Although today is the official birthday.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
So we won't have a daily devotion on Monday. I take it.
Oh, yes, we will.
Oh, okay. That's what I was asking. Okay.
Oh, yes. I'm going to do two things on Monday then. I'm going to observe the birthday, but we're going to have our midday devotional as well.
Okay. They're awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Take care.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Good to see you.
Bye.